didn't take any pain medicine.
No. I can't take pain medicine because I'm an alcoholic and an addict. And I explained to that right away when they came in to give me the morphine drip. I said, I can't take that. I'm an addict. And then they said, well, we have some Dilaudid.
Yeah.
Well, what's I can't do that.
Right.
And then they said, we have Oxycontin.
What part of it didn't they get?
Yeah. Now, and it wasn't just like, well, one person came in and offered it and another person came in and offered it. And I'm like, I need something that isn't addictive. And they go, well, don't worry about it because we're going to, you'll only be on it for a couple of days and then we'll take you off and we won't give you any more.
Yeah. And
I'm like, I have money. I live in New York City.
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to find Dilaudid and morphine on my own. And they go, well, we'll just make sure that you go off. I go, in 4 days, you're going to be negotiating with a different guy.
Yeah.
I am not going to be the
right?
guy. Yeah. I know for a fact that the whole reason that I don't get high at all is because the second I start to get high, I become that guy.
Yeah.
And it's almost like those movies like with the pod people or whatever, where, it looks like me and it sounds like me. But the back of my mind, it's somebody else, working things going, let's get high. So there's no, and actually this is, I would go so far even to say a fear of what happens to me again if I get into this, because nobody there could give me another option other than stuff that I knew would be addictive.
Yeah.
And it's a really strange thing. And actually, see, this is like the part of me that it's almost even a little bit embarrassing to talk about. But I went through a couple of pains there that were so intense. I kind of passed out from it a little bit. About an hour and a half into waking up from this. I'm like, I'm saying to my chick, I go, I think I have to do the morphine. And she's like, okay, you'll do the morphine and then we'll worry about it later. And then I said, okay, I'll do that. And as soon as I did that, I swear to God, I thought to myself, I got my iPod and what I'll do is put up some Velvet Underground. I'll get into Sweet Nothing. I'll genius that and just really have a ball. I mean, immediately I was not thinking like a guy who was trying to manage pain. I thought like a junkie who just wanted to have this.
The second you said okay.
Yeah, the second I said okay, I just wanted to go, well, this is great. I literally thought to myself, this is fantastic.
Yeah, now I got an excuse.
Now, and not only am I going to... I am going to enjoy it so much. I'm going to be playing my old junkie music. Everything's going to be great. And then that made me, say
forget it.
I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. But it's, I wish that wasn't the case. But, it's taken quite a few years to get to that point. And anybody who's ever quit anything, as you know, it comes up at least once a day in your head where you're thinking, maybe now at this point in my life, I could just have a drink or, maybe pot. I don't think I'm addicted to pot, but it's almost a daily occurrence that I think about those things and have to fight them off. So this thing that came up, and I get it 100%. I know why we need pain relievers, and I know not everybody struggles with this, and a lot of people can go on it for a couple of days, feel queasy, not enjoy it. I'm just not that guy, though. Yeah. There's nothing I can do about it.
Well, I got to tell you, I really admire you for going through that and being so straight edge about it, because most people don't do that. I got to tell you, we get a lot of people with former addiction problems that get in a car wreck and they break 20 bones in their body, and they got, they basically feel like they don't have a choice, and they get back on the medication. And we always have to warn them, look, this is going to kickstart your addiction again. And we have to put them on it and then taper them off slowly. And sometimes they end up back in rehab, because they just like you said, it kicks that whole thing into high gear again.
Right.
Is it fear for you, or is it just simple knowledge of how you're going to be?
Yeah, I mean, the fear part of it is I know once I get back into it, I'm not going to be thinking the same way I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, the knowledge is there in the fact that this is a decision that I made a long time ago, and it's, one that's important to me.
Yeah.
And I hate the fact that would be blown.
Yeah.
And I was surprised that the medical people there and down the line didn't just seem to understand this thing that I was talking about.
Yeah.
And
that surprises me too.
I had, and they were great. I mean, this was a great hospital. I'm on the Upper East Side. Everybody was terrific. Everybody really looked out for me, except for this one aspect that they did not understand.
Yeah.
And like I would have a nurse, 2 or 3 days later going, you could have. And I'm like,
they still had it ordered.
Right. I mean, you might as well be chopping lines in front of me. It's the same exact thing. It's all going to slide into the same exact place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not a lot I can,
The medical profession is not used to people that don't want their pain medication. And that's the fact.
But we also have a country full of
prescription drug abusers.
Yeah. Which I guess is better than being a street drug abuser.
I don't know.
But it's still, to me, it's all the same. I mean, what I call, that medication, in my mind, I have to call it dope. You know what I mean? Yeah. I have to, because it's no different, And Dilaudid, I remember getting as a kid, and, it never occurred to me that this was on someone's pain medication. Morphine, I never understood the pain aspect.
No, it was just fun.
Yeah.
Take me back to that early time. You grew up in Philly.
Right outside Philly.
Yeah, right outside Philly. And did you have a gateway drug? Do you believe in that gateway concept, or was it just a cultural thing, or how did you get into the whole drug scene?
It was definitely a cultural thing with me and my friends, and but if I'm to be totally honest about it, even before that, even as like a little kid, I loved when it was party time. I loved as like a toddler, and there would be, drinking the family. Mm-hmm. It was just felt like this is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
People they're not tense. They're singing.
Yeah.
This is great. So
I snuck my first alcohol at 10 because I'd hear my parents having their parties downstairs, and it seemed like everybody was having a great time.
It was thrilling, wasn't it? As a little kid, you're like, here's these people that are never any fun, and they're having a fantastic time. So that part of it, I never understood. Obviously we could all say, we've had people in our family that were alcoholics or whatever, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's genetics or whether just some people like the idea, because I definitely liked the idea of it, even though I didn't realize it at the time. But then after that, like the day that I started like seriously partying, like 13 or 14, I was just one of those guys who was partying every night. Yeah. And the similarity there is so did everybody that I grew up with.
Yeah.
I mean, we got together, got high, drank, whatever, and that was it. I mean, there wasn't any questioning. I heard you bring up the term straight edge. That didn't even exist.
Right.
In my neighborhood.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody who turned down anything.
Yeah.
I mean, if I look back on it too, I never turned down anything in my life.
Yeah.
I never thought maybe I shouldn't.
Yeah. Where were you getting it from?
Everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of that, but, it was never like some, scary guy on the street or anything like that. It was always my friends. It was me and my friends.
Yeah.
And it was the same as if, we listened to music, we watched movies, we chased girls. It was all tied in. There was no difference. There was no thought pattern that went into this. It was just life.
And you were doing kind of a polypharmacy thing, alcohol and narcotics?
Yeah, I never saw the difference between them, and I still probably don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's still, I've seen people have a couple of drinks and quit drinking for the night, like have 2 drinks and leave. I never understood it. To this day, I don't understand why you stop drinking when there's more stuff to drink.
Yeah. there's more there.
Yeah.
You're wasting it.
And it just, so, I hear a lot of people, come up with reasons that it happened, but, at the same time, I have a working spine and I never sit around wondering how, counting my blessings over that. I mean, out of all the things that you see, horrible things every day, and this just happens to be mine, but at the same time, in no way, and now, particularly since this happened, I probably feel closer to the edge than I've felt in years. Just knowing that edge is there again, just feeling it.
Yeah. But you pulled back from it, though. I'm again, great respect for you for doing that, because a lot of people don't do that.
Right, but for me,
the first excuse, hey, I've got a terminal illness. Great, now I can get OxyContin. I've had people say that to me.
Well, because the fantasy pops up in my mind all the time, and I have to keep, like, when that movie hits, I just have to keep playing it out. Okay, yeah, that's fun, but where do I go from there? Where do I go? So I kind of do that all the time, and even like when we get together with people at bars, I normally show up later after everybody looks obnoxious, you know what I mean? Because there's a time of the night that it all looks great. It looks pretty good. Yeah, it all looks great again.
Okay.
And I'm kind of famous for dodging weddings, because that everybody is together at the early part of the wedding, and that looks like a great time to me.
Okay. So when people get obnoxious, that helps to deter you?
Absolutely, because I'm going, well, there's that, there's that embarrassing way to be. Look how rough that is. He doesn't even know what he's saying. That's stupid. But leading up to that point, it still looks
great.
Tasty. Yeah.
Well, so in the beginning, it's a big party. You're partying with your friends. You're doing this stuff, and everything's great, kind of. Seems great anyway. When did it start to seem wrong? Or when did it start to go wrong? Maybe it didn't seem wrong at the time.
That's a great question, and I don't know. I mean, there was obviously a moment of clarity for me with alcohol, but I didn't go into a program or anything. I just did it myself. I said, Jesus Christ,
Did you hit bottom? I mean, was there one of those
I hit
bottom
my own
experiences?
personal bottom, because I have, enough ego about myself that, and I had actually, even as a kid, I thought, I got to get out of here, because I've seen people dying and stuff. So when I moved away from home, I had stopped being around drugs, and I was just drinking.
Yeah.
And that went on for a while, and then finally I had this moment of clarity thing, and I stopped, but without any, just white knuckle stopped for years. And then, and I hadn't really even thought of this, but from a dentist, got some downs. And when I quit, I thought I had a drinking problem. It didn't occur. I hadn't been around drugs for a couple of years, so I didn't think that I had a drug problem. I just kind of moved it over. And then when that happened, I went back into other things and never drank again. Like, even though I got back into dope, all different kinds of drugs, I didn't drink because I had a drinking problem.
Right.
So I would be sitting around with all these comics, and, we're chopping rails, and everybody's drinking to stay in, and they're going, how do you not drink? Well, it's willpower. You know, you really, it's something you got to believe in. And trust me, if you really focus on it, all you guys could do it. And I'm just, this is
just totally blind to what
and
was,
this is
what
why I
you were doing.
don't even trust myself to get back into this, because that's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane. But that's where my head is if I start to do that,
Wow. Now, how long ago was this that you had that moment of clarity?
Well, I had kind of quit drinking when I was a kid, and then went years without it, and then back into different kind of drugs up until
so So when was that? When did you get back into the drugs?
I got off of it, and most of these things kind of roll in and out. But about 13 years ago, I'm not a chip guy,
All right.
So then, but at that point, I met a great guy who went over some of the things of why, and kicking was, I mean, being dope sick is the worst thing in the world. And I didn't think, I was going to come out of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if I look back on it, I probably even should have had some medical things. So I had, this was in a stupid place for a while.
Yeah.
And so when I came up and out of this, and I've been clean all this time, it's I don't want to say I was taking it for granted, but I guess I just felt like I had this thing behind me until this pain came up. And now, what happens? Like you said, what happens if I'm in a car accident? What happens if I get my toe chopped off?
And, without a medical alert bracelet, if you're in a car wreck and you're bad off enough, they'll give you the morphine before you even are aware of what's going on.
But even then, at that point, are they even going to believe the medical alert bracelet?
I don't know.
Here's the
it's
thing.
a tough one. This is one of those things that just it never comes up.
Well, this is the weird thing. I'm trying to explain to these people, I can't have morphine, dude.
Right.
And if I said to them I can't have a peanut, they would get it. You know what I mean? They would get that allergy. I'm allergic to this, obviously. I'm allergic to drugs and alcohol. I shouldn't be around it.
We in the medical profession are, they had a couple of things they could have used on you, by the way. There's a stuff called Toradol, which is an injectable anti-inflammatory medication that may have given you some relief with no narcotic overtime.
I think I did have some anti-inflammatory things, but I don't know the name of it.
Yeah. And the other thing is we're working on a type of medication called N-type calcium channel blockers, and it comes from a cone snail that lives in the deep sea. And for some reason, this stuff stops pain signals from going into the brain. And it's not narcotic, works on a completely different pathway. And this is truly non-addictive, unlike how they used to say, well, we got this new stuff, heroin. It's a non-addictive version of morphine. This stuff is truly non-addictive. The only problem with it is right now, the only way that you can take it is through a spinal tap. They have to stick a needle in your spine and inject it. So, it's pretty far away from being in general use. But when we have that, we can maybe get away from this, and get some of the street drugs, which are now all prescription drugs.
Right.
And if they're not stolen from the pharmacy, all the OxyContin that's on the street right now was written for somebody by a doctor.
Oh, absolutely. And here's the weird thing. I think the difference between my generation and the kids now is that we knew it was dope.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we went out and got our dope, and it was great. We had fun. And these other kids, since they're getting it because the school thinks they need it and this and that, I don't think they know they're doing drugs at all. I think they're all just think they're taking medicine.
Yeah.
And what is that whole purpose of, Adderall and all that kind of shit for kids?
Well, the thing with Adderall and Vyvanse and all those stimulants, the theory behind it is that it helps the kids to focus, because when you've got ADD, their big problem is they can't focus. And they're just, they're looking out the window, they're looking up, they're singing, they're talking to their friends, they're doing this, and their academics are suffering. I had ADD, and I would get 99th percentile on this stupid Iowa Basics. You remember that test? And then I'd be getting C's and D's in school. It was ridiculous. I drove my parents crazy. If they had known about Adderall back then, I'll guarantee you I would have been on Adderall. And the medications actually do help the kids to focus. I mean, I only did speed one time in my life, and it was during a clinical trial. And they gave you speed, and they gave you thyroid releasing hormone, and they gave you saline, and you never knew which one was which. Well, I knew exactly which one was which. It was a joke. And when they gave me the speed, I could list 12 digits backwards when they read them to me. I mean, it was incredible the amount of focus that you could have on that stuff. And when they found those sorts of effects, then they thought, well, this might be a good thing for kids to have. And, I think it's overdiagnosed and it's overprescribed. I do think that there's a place for it, though. If you've got a kid who's suffering academically, you give them the medicine, all of a sudden they're making A's and B's,
But what's that give us? what is the purpose? Your own speed, you can get A's and B's.
Yeah.
How's that a positive?
Well,
I mean, I obviously have ADD, but I've found a job where, read stuff, go to the phones, talk to people,
Yeah.
So I don't understand what good an A is if you got your kid on dope.
Yeah. Yeah. The theory is they don't have to stay on it forever, that they eventually, it becomes
Go on
a
to
learned
other
behavior.
drugs.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
I mean, seriously.
That's a great question.
If you talk to college kids, they trade these things back and forth. They snort them, and, it's become a party thing. The whole thing about you saying they don't have to be on it forever, again, go back to my thing.
Yeah.
Maybe now I don't want to go off it.
Yeah.
Now, the real thing, I think, at the back of my mind is, particularly when I went into that morphine drip, and I don't know whether you've ever had that before, morphine or heroin or, well, you get this feeling that's just, as a matter of fact, I was talking to somebody the other day and they said it felt like being in a heat lamp. It was actually Rosie Perez who went through the same thing with her neck.
Wow.
For me, I always thought of it as like just feeling like your bones are cut and there's a warm thing. But in the back of my mind, I think that's the way I think life should feel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
At that point, life should really be that comfortable. And it almost is like a feeling that maybe we confuse with a spiritual feeling. I don't know well, we call alcohol spirits,
Yeah.
at some point in our past, we thought that was the spirit life.
Yeah.
But there is a feeling there that I think if I had to say it, what should life feel like, that would be it.
Yeah.
Now,
And what you describe when you're, and the body language, nobody could see that, but you kind of hugged yourself and you talk about being warm. I mean, that's a back to the womb thing.
Yeah, it's a
no
womb
question
thing.
about that.
Yeah.
We're always seeking that, I think.
Well, yeah, I get that completely. And what I don't understand is when everyone else goes, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Like we'll just sit here and we'll smoke the same cigarette for 3 days. We just keep falling back and forth.
Yeah.
There's and I get it that it's insanity, but if I really had to, swear on a Bible, I think that feeling is.
Yeah.
Now, what happens is it doesn't stay there. You know what I
Right.
mean? It turns into all the nightmare stuff, and I've never ran into anybody who did any of the kind of stuff that I did for any period of time who doesn't have the worst possible stories. I think that's why meetings work.
Yeah.
Do
you go to meetings? Are you a meeting guy?
I'm not a joiner to really anything, but those were the people that helped me. But when I go back, I will tell you the truth. The funniest thing about going to meetings at first, and the most humbling thing, was to find out how far from unique I am. And I know some people like, oh, it's great, they're just like me. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. I thought I had this poetic story. I thought I was Bukowski.
Yeah.
I thought I was a Tom Waits song.
Yeah.
And here's this housewife and this 14-year-old kid who do the same shit.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, God.
Yeah. I can only relate in the sense that I thought I invented masturbation when I was 12. So I think
the way you do it is a little different than anyone else. I'll give you that. No one else puts their feet up on the wall like that. That's different.
Oh boy. Let me. I just want to ask you a couple more questions, and I just
Then
want to say
you'll let
this.
me go, officer?
Yeah, no, I want to let you go. They're telling us you have to go. No, hey, E-Rock, I would take some calls. We've got a completely full phone bank, except none of them say what the caller wants or who they are or anything. It's just got
the
their
cops.
phone numbers. So I'm just throwing that out there for the control room. And all the people who are on hold, sorry, I see one that's been on hold for at least 15 minutes, and I can't go to you till I mean, we could just take random calls and see what happens.
Doesn't matter either way. But, the one thing I was thinking about this, too, with your work, Warren Zevon, I don't know whether you're real familiar with him and his music and all, but he was a guy who stayed straight for a lot of years. And when he found out, he had a terminal case, he was like, good, let's do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that really broke a lot of other people's spirits, you know?
Yeah.
And who's to say? I mean, maybe.
Well, at that point.
You know, but also at that point, you know, I always have that worry that I'm going to go out a junkie.
Dopehead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of, you know, knowing where I'm going or knowing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Just sliding down it.
So if you had a terminal illness, you're still going to...
Oh, I would never...
Never going to do it again.
I'm not going to tell you I'm not going to leave here and
Yeah.
not go out and cop. I'm not going to play that game
Okay.
ever in my life. I mean, I don't judge anybody for anything. But I think I brought up the thing of Warren is that's what can happen, you know? And I think the weird thing about it is that's the stuff that... And I mean, there's very few... do you consider disease alcoholism an addiction?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I'm in that camp. I mean, it's certainly... There's a lot of choices that are made,
Right.
but the withdrawal syndrome that's very real and very physical, to me, puts it in the classification of a disease. And on top of that, there's genetic evidence that it's passed down from generation to generation, you know, through DNA. How ribonucleic acid codes for proteins that somehow make you crave alcohol after you've tried it once, I don't know, but it certainly seems to be the case.
I think the thing about it, though, is like I can't think of like another disease that goes out and hurts the other people that you love. And I guess it does. I mean, I guess everybody feels bad when somebody gets something, but that's the part of it, too, that keeps to me. And I say that because a lot of those people I told you I grew up with are gone.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are in a place that they don't care whether or not when they go or when not. And some of those people, I guess I feel a certain even responsibility for, you know, being part of it with. But it's amazing. It's amazing how many people that you can hurt when you don't keep an eye on it.
Well, and you had a family.
But even, you know, and yes,
that went on this roller coaster with you too, I guess.
Oh yeah, and they had to, absolutely, and not all that pain that you cause are you even aware of. So when you go off of it, you're like, hey, look, I did it, you know.
Yeah.
But in the meantime,
look at me.
You've burnt down all these other things, and then you make the announcement. Great news, everyone! I stopped burning up shit. You know, let's have a parade for me. Look, I got another chip for not burning down stuff. So it's you know.
Yeah. Well, that's step 9 of the 12 steps. You know, it's make direct amends, except when to do so would cause greater harm.
Right.
And you know, that's got to be. I mean, a really tough thing is to make that inventory of yourself and come up with and see the harm that you have done to the people around you. Now, if people out there have somebody that is out of control, you know, they're not alone either. There is Al-Anon. You can go to alanon.org and sign up. Go to a meeting if you need to help somebody. And, you know, if you're an alcoholic, go to a meeting. You know, once you admit the problem, that's the first step, you know. And Narcotics Anonymous is, did you go to NA or AA? Or
I was in, I actually have done both, but I was in this closed meeting with that one guy who was running it in Florida, and I just found him to be a very charismatic guy. And then the people in that group became very, very close to me, and there weren't people coming in and out of that group. And from that point on, after I felt safe there, because at the time that I decided to kick, I had like the #1 show down in Florida, and everybody knew me, blah, blah, blah. So even when I showed up at the closed meeting, there were people that didn't want me there because they thought, oh, Shock Jock's going to be telling my story,
right.
You know, the fact that, you know, he's going to just not be able to, you know. So the weirdest thing of all is in this, like, anonymous world, the anonymous people felt like, you know, very
you
comfortable.
were anything but anonymous.
Yeah, so I had to sit in and not only that, but I was known, well, you know the way radio people are. You know, me and Opie both of us would, whatever, to, you know, keep our show going. Yeah. So I had to convince all those people, which was another humbling thing, you know.
Yeah.
Because I'm finding myself yelling out to people, you think anyone gives a shit about you? You could sell me out before I could embarrass you.
Yeah, Brian wants to ask you a question. Let me get, that's Danny's mic, right? Go.
You were talking about...
Oh, wait. Sorry, go.
You were talking about the anonymity of the...
Well, your mic still isn't working. I've got Jimmy's mic and Danny's mic up. Okay, just get on Jimmy's mic. There you go.
You were talking about the anonymity of the rooms and how the whole program works, and I have experience with that in my family. Being as popular as you were down in Florida when you had the Ron and Ron show, how did you feel about not having that opportunity the way everybody else had the opportunity to have anonymity?
First of all, it's none of your goddamn business, Brian. And second of all, I'm not even, I'm not even comfortable talking about AA or NA at all. I would not even begin to speak for any of those folks. And even when, Dr. Steve brought it up to me, it even took me back a bit. And I had to say I was in a closed group away from that.
Right.
I think when it comes to that kind of thing, if I guess I choose to just at that point just say I'm here and whatever happens. It can't be as bad as what you're doing to yourself and other people. When you do finally say to yourself, this is enough.
Yeah.
You normally have something that has been bad enough that you don't care what comes next.
Right.
I mean, for me, being embarrassed over that, beyond that fact. As a matter of fact, I have to, and I've thought about this in the back of my head, it's the one thing I have to kind of use humor with all the time and make jokes about it and everything, and just to keep it. It's my way of kind of even reminding myself. And I don't think a day has gone by I don't remind myself of that.
A couple more questions, and then we're going to take a break. You've told me before that you have an interest in Buddhism. Are you a Buddhist, or is it just a philosophy that interests you?
No, I would say no one book, no one teacher. Yeah. I mean, in terms of that, and it's one of the things I do like about those meetings is that you could take whatever whatever you get, but. I mean, to me, I just feel, whatever the glory of the universe is enough for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even imagine asking for more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, of the experiences that I've had on Earth, and then to sit around and worry about, what's next or where do I get to go?
Yeah.
Seems like, it seems almost a little obnoxious to me. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
You've got an incredible universe, and you even brought this up in the medical field. For everything that we know, we're just crawling along.
Yeah.
So if we can't figure out how to come up with some of these other things, what makes us think that we could even begin to comprehend eternity?
Yeah.